Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Ben Affleck directed film called Live by Night. This is his fourth time working as a director on a movie. Gone Baby Gone was his first, The Town was his second, Argo was his third, and here we are, film number four with him as a director and an actor and a writer, and that is Live by Night. This film was based off of a novel by Dennis Lehane, who also worked on Gone Baby Gone, which was Ben Affleck's first movie, so you can already tell right there that he probably wanted to collaborate with him again after all the success he's been having over the course of his now directing career along with his acting career. And in Live by Night, you guys, this film takes place in the Prohibition era. And it focuses on an outlaw that Ben Affleck plays in the movie, and he is trying to fit in. He really doesn't want to belong to a mob or to a clan of gangsters of any kind, but he does want to become more rich. He wants to have a relationship like everybody else. So he kind of slowly becomes a part of these gangs within the Boston area, since that's where he starts out at the beginning of the movie. And things are going well for the most part, but after a while he gets frames for things that he didn't do, or there's things that he got involved with that he's not happy about, that the wrong people found out what he was doing behind the scenes, behind certain people's backs and so forth. So that he goes to prison for a while, and after he gets eventually released from prison, he eventually reconnects with somebody who he was doing these robberies with and all this gang activity with. And this man is played by Chris Messina from one of my personal favorite films, Ruby Sparks. He also collaborated with Ben Affleck in the movie Argo. He played a character in that movie. But so he reconnects with him, who lives in Miami, Florida at this point, over by Palm Beach or something like that, I think. And so he kind of is involved with all the prohibition stuff. He's doing all these secretive alcohol sales and so forth. So Ben Affleck goes down to Florida to help him out with this. And while he's down there, he falls in love with a different woman over someone he fell in love with back in Boston and so forth. And he's trying to help this guy get the prohibition thing off the ground running in Florida, and they try to build a casino and so forth. So they're trying to just survive within this world because it's so competitive, and everybody's trying to be the best gangster, the best mobster, work for the best mobster, and so forth. So this film is also just ultimately about surviving the prohibition era and how the Ben Affleck character can kind of come on top of all this and get revenge at the people that framed him for all this awful stuff that he didn't really do to begin with. So this movie takes on all these things over the course of a 2-hour film, both within the Boston area and the Miami, Florida area within the Prohibition era. So overall, guys, I liked Live by Night a lot. It's definitely not Ben Affleck's best film. I think all his three earlier films before Live by Night were all better movies. Specifically, The Town. The Town was definitely a film that, even to this day, I do watch quite a bit. I own both the original and the director's cut of that movie, and I think it's a very well made movie. Unfortunately, Live by Night is not his best paced movie. I think a lot of people are really going to be turned off how slow this movie is compared to Argo and The Town and Gone Baby Gone. But overall, I did like the film overall, so let's go over some positives and negatives of the things I liked and did not like about Live by Night. So for my positives of Live by Night, I thought the Prohibition era set design was very effective here. Ben Affleck really found a way with his set designers and with his directing skills and so forth, and I'm sure all those connections he has within the Boston area, to really make sure that this film looks like it took place in the Prohibition era, whether they are in Boston or whether they are in Florida. This film really does look like we're back in the Prohibition era. That doesn't feel modern day at all. It really does feel like we are back within that era, experiencing the lifestyle that it was back then. I also think the action scenes are very good in this movie. There's not a lot of them. They're definitely not as long as I wish they could have been, but whenever there is action scenes in this film, they are very well done. They're very well choreographed. They're very intense, very edge of your seat. There's a bank robber scene near the beginning of the movie that takes place in these little buggies that they rob and so forth. And there's a shootout towards the end of the film that also is very much worth your time and money with this movie. So whenever action scenes do happen in this movie, they are very well shot. And they are very well told as well. I also like this film's narrative. Ben Affleck's character, who's this outlaw character, he does narrate a good chunk of the movie, and I think it does work. I really think it does work with him explaining to the audience how he feels about certain things, his own experiences with certain things, how he heard about things going into other places, and how we get to see how it really plays out based on what he knows about certain people and certain places within Boston and Florida. So I think the film's overall narrative was very effective for the movie. I also feel very invested in this movie. I felt invested in the characters. I felt invested in the activities and events and the situations that they got involved with. But specifically, the Ben Affleck character. I felt invested in the Zoe Saldana character, the Sienna Miller character, the Chris Messina character, who Ben Affleck reconnects with after going to jail and going to Miami, Florida later on in the movie, and so forth. I felt very invested in the movie, and I think that's just a huge thumbs up once again to Ben Affleck to make sure that we feel really invested in these characters over the course of the movie. I also thought Ben Affleck's character found a way to have good screen chemistry with all these different characters that we encounter throughout the movie. We get the gangsters and the love interests and the mobsters that Ben Affleck has to fight off in the movie, and the people who he betrays and so forth. Ben Affleck found a way to really find good screen chemistry with all these different characters within this Prohibition era. So whenever he has to collaborate with these characters, specifically with the Chris Messina character, I think the two of them really had good screen chemistry in the movie. He really found a way to just really make sure he blended in with everybody, and that the film not only worked well as a directing effort from him, but from an acting perspective as well for the movie. I think the Boston scenes in this movie specifically are the best scenes in the movie. They're the best paced scenes in the movie. The action scenes are the best part of the Boston scenes in the movie as well. Once again, Ben Affleck knows that place within the world so incredibly well, and Live by Night definitely once again proves that he knows how to film a good Boston movie. I also like the film's theme about how sometimes real life is already a heaven of its own, how, the best days of our lives and the best moments of our lives and the moments that we kind of cherish and remember forever, and the moments that, or the people that we get involved with that we really fall in love with and share passions with and so forth. Those are kind of a heaven of its own already without us going into the afterlife. So I like how there's moments in this movie where characters talk about how really living your life to the fullest as you're already a person right now, living and everything, can already be a heaven of its own. I think that's a really nice message that this film portrays as well. Now for my negatives of Live by Night. I think the second half of this film, unfortunately, is very, very slow. I would definitely say once the film transitions over from Boston to Florida, it really is a much slower film at that point in the movie. It really does take a long time to make its point with point A to point B to point C with all the things that Ben Affleck's character gets involved with in the Florida area. It just takes a very long time to make its point within that area of the movie. So unfortunately, the second half of this film is very slow paced. And even though I did love the action scenes a lot in this movie, they feel very short lived. The action scenes just feel very brief. I feel like they just don't feel long enough. We spent all this time building up all this stuff within the Florida area, but when we finally get back to the action scenes again, they just feel very short-lived and very, it feels like everything that we've built up to reach those points aren't worthy of those really good action scenes just because they're very short-lived, and we build up to them so much, and by the time we build up to those scenes that eventually do happen, they just aren't long enough to feel as invested as we once were from those earlier scenes. I also think this is one of Ben Affleck's least impactful movies as a director. Gone Baby Gone made me think about that ending for so long. The town had such a beautiful message about, people who can change and people who can, change everything around for the better and so forth. And, Argo was such a well-made thriller with, great messages and a great true life story that happened with this man and the hostages and so forth. But this film, I liked it for what it was. I think it definitely works well as a movie for the most part, but I just didn't feel as impacted as I did with those earlier Ben Affleck directed films. There's just nothing about this movie that makes me feel like I have to memorize it and remember it as well as those three earlier films. It just doesn't have that Ben Affleck stamp that those three earlier films did. And this one other point I can't really talk about for too long just because it would go into spoiler territory. So to avoid spoilers as much as I can, the Sienna Miller character, who very much is very dominant in the earlier half of the movie during the Boston scenes, all I'm going to say is towards the end of the film we learn additional information about her that kind of cheapens the character a little bit, to be honest. It was one of those things where I felt very much invested with her within the Boston scenes in the movie, but once we find out more about her and once the film transitions over to Florida and we learn more about her and so forth, I just didn't care about her as much. Once I found out the real wizard behind the curtain and so forth with her, I just didn't care about her as much as I did in those Boston scenes. So as a result, the ending of this movie kind of cheapens her character a little bit. And that's too bad because I did feel invested in her for the most part, but by the end of the movie, I didn't feel as invested in her as I once did. But overall, I'm going to give Live by Night an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a much better film than critics are giving it credit for. I do think it does work as a movie. I think, a lot of people are saying, oh, it would have worked better as a miniseries. I can see that opinion occurring, but for me personally, I think they made the right film here. I think it was just one of those things where it just is a little overstuffed, and that second half is just very slow, and at that point in the movie, they really didn't know what to exactly focus on and that kind of thing. So overall, it's a good movie. Maybe if I found it for $5 somewhere at a Walmart somewhere, maybe I would check it out again. But I definitely wouldn't pay another full $20 or so to go see the movie again or own the movie or anything. So good movie, not a great movie. So if you like Ben Affleck as a director, I think it is worth your time and money. So like I said, if you like that kind of stuff, Live by Night is worth your time and money. Unfortunately, it's not like a top 10 best kind of material movie, but it is very good for the most part.